Zenu, let me just close the door and snag a hummus.
Sorry.
Use the microphone.
And I'm going to use the Hertz hummus, which I call the old battle wagon of the Orthodox and conservative movements. Unfortunately, nobody's using it anymore, except us. We're the last temple on earth to use this. It was a big deal in 1935, but since that time, with all of the terrible stuff that happened, the conservatives are using the Red Wonder over there, which is the Eitz Chaim, which is really very good and such a bargain at 75 per. And the Orthodox are using the Art Scroll, which is the most peculiar chumash you ever heard of. When it first came out, the editor was a rabbi by the name of Nosson Shearman, and he was very good. He took out all the sex from the Song of Songs, he took out all the cynicism from Ecclesiastes, but otherwise he left everything the way it was. And they wanted to do a fundraiser because the beauty of Art Scroll, and one of the reasons they were able to keep their prices down, is they would get some deep-pocketed Orthodox Jewish person to subsidize each book. And the end result was, because of this fundraiser thing, they took out a big ad in whatever Jewish press there was that said, for a limited time, you can buy the Art Scroll Chumash signed by the author. And everybody was saying, whoa, I want to get me one of those. So you going to sign his name in Hebrew or English? And they said, oh, oopsie, we meant the editor. Okay, so Hazinu, which is the Torah portion for this Shabbat, represents the next to the last Torah reading, what we call the penultimate. The penultimate. Yes, it is the one that comes before the last one. And it's a poem. According to tradition, Moses wrote 3 poems. Anybody know the poem he wrote? Okay, there's a big body of water, and here come the Egyptians. Yes, the Sea of Reeds. Moses composed the Shirat Hayam, the Song of the Sea, or you call it in Hebrew the Az Yashir, which means then he sang. It also means then he will sing, and that's been interpreted to mean when Messiah comes, Moses will majestically rise from the dead and chant his song again. So he probably didn't write it, but it's a very nice song, and it was my bar mitzvah portion, so I feel kind of close to it. That's number 1. Number 2 is this one, this Hazinu. It's 896 in the Chumash, and we'll do it tomorrow. It is a poem, and I'll be speaking about the contents in a couple of minutes. And it's really discouraging. I mean, you figure God has carried the Israelites for 40 years, and now they're getting ready to cross over Jordan and go into the Promised Land. And what does Moses get up to tell them? It's kind of the Lombardi. What was his first name? He was a football coach.
Vince
Lombardi.
Yes, Vince Lombardi. You give a pep talk to the team.
It wasn't a pep talk.
No, it's really very discouraging. The gist of it is really a microcosm of all of not Jewish history, because again, it's not history, it's Tanakh. You're going to go into the land, you're going to be grateful, you're going to eat the fat of the land, but then you're going to be attracted to the idolatry all around you. You're going to follow the idolatry, and what is God going to do? Yes, he's going to zap them. After he zaps them, they're going to be sad and miserable. This is also the traditional explanation for why you get the Assyrians conquering Israel, and then you get the Babylonians, then finally get the Persians, although the Persians were okay. And it's very, very discouraging. God says, well, I zapped you, but you're still my people. I still love you. Okay? What we refer to as Yisurei Shel Ahava, that is chastisements of love. And the classic example of that, which I've said before, is you're babysitting the toddler, and the toddler is at that particular stage in her development where she can't walk very well, but she can crawl like thunder. Oh my goodness. They're really close to the ground, move very fast. And you're sitting there reading your Wall Street Journal, your New York Times. This is a very old story. Or you're looking at your phone. There you go. And you look out of the corner of your eye and you see that little baby Hortense has somehow gotten a hold of a fork, and she's crawling top speed towards an outlet in the wall, and you say, oh, don't worry, any family, any house that has a toddler is obviously going to have those plastic plugs in the outlets of the wall that children can get out. Adults cannot take them out. You're going to break a nail trying to get that thing out. But, somebody left the cap out of the outlet because they had the nerve to be vacuuming, and they forgot to put it back in, or they lost it. And here goes Hortons with her fork, and just before she raises her little baby arm and plunges the fork into the outlet, you jump, you drop the Wall Street Journal, you jump out of your chair, you 3 steps, you're across the room, and what do you do to get her to drop the fork? You slap her hand, and what does the baby do?
Cry.
She cries. And what do you say in my mother-in-law's immortal words? Better you should cry now than I should cry later. Okay? Which makes even a nice thing sound pretty awful. It's Jewish, right? Well, that's the same thing here. Now, I don't know if you like this or not. I don't really care for it, but this is how they taught me, so I'm just passing it along. Yisura shel ahava is when God afflicts someone he loves for their own good. Sorry. Oops. Okay. Any thoughts? Any comments?
Tough love.
Tough love. There you go. Okay, I'm not letting you in the house because you steal my money. Anybody else? Is it okay?
No.
I mean, do we like it?
No.
What can you do about it? What can you do about it?
Oh, there. That's very good. Thank you. That's another Jewish response. What can I do?
It's problematic though,
I think so.
because
Yes.
if you have like, let's say, like I remember we were in a very bad car accident and we were both okay, sort of, and people said, oh, God, wasn't your time yet, and I was thinking, well, you know, lots of people in car accidents and some die, you know, we had a rollover, so how can you say God does one for one, one for the other?
Because it might be someone else's time and not your time.
Well,
That's right.
For everything.
and the answer is I have no answer because
Everything under the sun.
I'm
A
sorry,
song.
Paul, what?
It's a song. He's singing a song.
What?
It's time for it.
Everything, turn.
Yeah, exactly. That's the one.
Right, and everything under the sun has its time, so.
Well, that's Ecclesiastes, meaning
And
bad
it's also
things are
the
going to
birds.
happen. You're stuck with it. I'm sorry.
And it's also the birds.
Yes, of course.
But it's always amazing how the difference of a second, or even a fraction of a second, can be the difference between life and death.
Right, sure. Yes.
She put that fork in that little thing, it would have been a fraction of a
Well,
second.
you know,
Yes.
when you're out driving and you see there's some idiot who changes lanes right in front of you.
Yeah, we
without
saw a few of those on
signaling,
the
and you
way.
say, you know, one more second either way, and
That's right.
Yes. What is it in Israel? The Israeli guy goes to the mechanic and says, my brakes don't work, please fix the horn. It could be Florida too. No, the truth is, and this is Elie Wiesel now. Elie Wiesel says you go through life, you ask questions for which there are no answers. But as you go further along, you have more experiences and you can ask the same questions from a higher level of experience. That's cold comfort indeed, and I'm glad everything turned out okay. But, I mean, I've heard the really stupidest answers to things. I mean, I went to, God forbid, the funeral of an infant, and the pastor said, let us rejoice because little so-and-so is in heaven today. And I'm thinking, yeah, well, I'm sure her parents would love to have her back here, and heaven can go looking for other people, you see. I don't want to depress you, so instead I'll do Hazinu, okay? Hazinu, it really starts out with a slam and a bang. For starters, what is the most common imperative verb for here, as in hero Israel? How do you say
Shema.
hero Israel?
Shema.
Yes, the Shema Yisrael. So generally, that's the verb we use. Hazinu is different. Hazinu is give ear, or let your ear take in this wonderful story, song, which I'm going to share with you. And once again, don't forget, if we're going with the traditional explanation, he's speaking to a group of Israelites who have no experience of suffering. For 40 years, God has held them in the palm of his hand. So it's a totally different perspective than you would have had, let's say, if they had been at Sinai and built the golden calf and all that stuff. Even though, come on, you know this particular generation has suffered as well. That infamous, can we have some meat today? Yes, I'll take out the fleshig flatware. I'll send a flock of quail, and you'll trap them and roast them, but while the meat is between your teeth, I'm going to smite you with a plague. Next time, try and cook the meat a little more thoroughly. Okay, so we don't know about that. But here it goes. Hazino Shemai v'adabera v'tishma haaretz imrei. Now this is what we call parallelism, okay? It's like God is in heaven, we are upon earth. That's what you call oppositional parallelism. You don't have rhyme or rhythm in biblical poetry. You can do it. I could probably tear it off myself. But you see, parallelism is different. Always remember and never forget. There you go. That's Horton Hears a Who. You see, you have to emphasize what is being said here. So, my doctrine shall drop as the rain, my speech shall distill as the dew, as the small rain upon the tender grass, as the showers upon the herb. So why are they so big on rain? I'm not so big. We had a lot of rain today.
They don't have enough water.
Yes.
They're in the desert.
Not traditionally, archaeologically, anthropologically, it's a fact that Israel did not have sufficient rainfall. That's why you have stories about, say, Choni Magal, Choni the circle drawer, who was known, he would take his stick, his staff, and he would draw a circle in the sand, and he would step in, and he would say, God, I'm not going to leave this circle until you make it rain. And to his credit, God didn't say, so what? And leave him there. No, he always made it rain. You had diviners, the guys with the stick, but Egypt, on the other hand, was always reliable for rain. That's why to this day, the majority of Egyptians live in the Nile Delta, because the Nile rises over its banks and irrigates the land. Israel was not like that. Jerusalem had no water supply. It was up in the mountains. Not until the Romans built a very nice aqueduct. Okay, and I don't know what the plumbing situation is now, because I don't know how you put down pipes when it's all rock underneath. Now, I don't know if you accept this. Hatzur tamim palo ki chad rachab mishpat el emunah ve'en avel tzadik v'yashar hu. The rock. Why is God a rock and not a wall?
Rocks are movable. Like to be
Well, this is Joel. This is a rock.
Well, we say someone is a rock, our
rock
strength.
of ages.
Yes, Rock of Ages. Okay,
Yeah.
there's a Christian one and a Jewish one. But also a wall can fall. A rock is planted. Okay? And let's see. All of his ways are justice, a God of faithfulness without iniquity. Righteous and upright is God. It's a lovely piece. And you know when we say it? It's the first couple of lines out of Leviah at a funeral. Why?
Remember?
Because
Do I remember what? That I said that on bad day. That means that they don't listen to me.
well, they like a little reinforcement. You can say it again if you want. Yes. No, but that why would that be the first two lines of a poem that you read at a funeral? When it's taken from this semi-jolly, well, not really, this kind of portentous poem. Okay,
What
the
are the 2 lines?
the sheltering rock, his work is perfect, for all his ways are justice, a God of faithfulness and without iniquity, just and right is he.
Can't blame God for what happened. I guess that would be an analogy for it.
That's good, okay. Anybody else?
And we accept his decision
Mm-hmm.
as a just decision.
Right, there's also a Haftorah, I don't know which Navi, which prophet it is, and I wish I did, where he says, he will not abandon our souls to the grave, okay? Now, the evil will burn in endless perdition, but the righteous, and most of us are Benoni, most of us are in between. Nobody is completely righteous, thank God nobody is completely sinful. And at the end of days, there will be a resurrection. The details are kind of mysterious, okay? But it is significant that this particular verse found itself as part of the funeral. You take it out of the Hazinu, which is talking about the future of the people. We know the Jewish people will go on forever because God has spoken it. Every generation thinks, that's it, we're the end. There's a quotation from the Talmud when, just throwing in the names, when Rabbi Yehuda died, there were no more poets. When Rabbi Yehoshua died, there were no more tellers of tales. When Rabbi Chaim died, there were no more great Talmudists. That was written in the 1st century. That generation who face threats much more elemental than we, the threat of imperial Rome. A lot of those people who were murdered, the rabbis who were murdered on Yom Kippur, were murdered during the Hadrianic persecutions. And the best thing you could say about Hadrian is he wasn't Caligula or Nero. They really were not, they didn't encourage the health of their subjects.
But you were explaining in many parshiot, the last parshiot,
Yes.
all the time that Moses, he didn't want to quit. I mean, he wanted to continue and he wanted to continue
Yes.
until the moment that God says to him, enough, I don't want to listen anymore.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't want to talk anymore about this issue. And so here he's finally recognizing that God's decision is
You have no choice.
yeah, he's recognizing that. And maybe this is why we are taking that way, because if Moses, the great Moses, finally he recognized, he accepts that he has to die, he has to pass the torch to another one, to another generation, and he cannot do everything. So if he can do that, I don't know how to translate.
Say it in Spanish.
how to say? No, the word was will be like Homer, like.
Oh,
like,
Homer. That is, if it's
If
like
he
this, then
does,
it's like that.
So we should do like him. Yes. So
Yes.
this is why when somebody of us, of our beloved ones, is departed, we say that line, that verse that says
Yes.
that we accept that the decision of God
Yes.
is.
And the Kal V'chomer is what they call in Latin a fortiori, meaning that if it applies, it would actually, if it applies to Moses, it's actually Chomer V'Kal. If it applies to Moses, then it should certainly apply to us. Yes.
Don't we see so many examples of this kind of behavior? People who are very important or very expert in a field, an athlete whose time has come to retire, but he doesn't quite want to retire, he wants to keep on going, or I was thinking right away of Bernie Sanders, someone like, you gotta say he can't go on anymore,
Well,
but
it's
he wants to go on.
what I call the, yes, story.
Moses had a different relationship with God than we have.
Oh, certainly.
So his interpersonal relationship, we assume he was really in touch with God as a person
Yeah.
almost.
Highest level of prophecy.
So it's like, I like to think, okay, it's perfect. I know this is what's going to happen when I'm gone. Moses knew what was going to happen. We kind of like,
Well,
so-
originally, God wanted to let him down easy. He wanted him to not to know the day of his death. But there are all kinds of midrashim, all kinds of legends that he does find out, and he is very concerned about his legacy. Because when you've devoted your entire life to teaching Torah, spreading Torah, disseminating Torah, all that stuff, and the story, it's a sad story, but so many Jewish stories are, and I like this one best, where Moses says to God, what will happen when I'm gone? Who's going to carry on teaching the people? And God said, turn around. And he turns around, Moses, and he sees himself in the very back row. You know those big lecture halls they have in college? Well, he, of course, is in the back row. And he sees a small figure up front, and he nudges the kid next to him, and he says, who is that? He says, oh, that's the great Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was the prince of Torah scholars. I'm sure there were several runners-up, and you could debate about that. But he's listening to Rabbi Akiva teach Talmud, and Talmud, of course, is based on the Mishnah, and Mishnah, of course, is based on Torah. And he has no idea what the man is saying. And he's got a pretty good education, Moses. He wasn't a peasant. He probably, I'm assuming, went to some sort of fancy Egyptian boarding school when he was still getting along with Pharaoh, Ramses II. And then later on, of course, he learns about Judaism from the very source. Okay, Moses has no idea what he's saying because he's so erudite, because he's so up there in terms of his explanations and studies and all that stuff. And then a student asks Rabbi Akiva a question, and Rabbi Akiva says, Zeh halacha l'Moshe miSinai. This is a law given to Moses on Sinai, And we continue to observe it because it has all that antiquity. It goes all the way back to the source. And Moses is very, very happy. And then he says, God, this man is such a remarkable scholar and speaker, he says. What happens to him? Does he go on to fame and fortune? And God says, you're not going to like it. And he says, I want to see. God says, turn around. So he turns around again, and he's in the Forum. He's in the Colosseum. And he sees Rabbi Akiva being tortured to death for the crime of teaching Torah. And Moses says, God, he says, you call yourself a just and merciful God. How can you do this to this man? And God says, be silent, son of Amram. Such is my will. You just don't know. When I don't know if it was Rilke or one of those Protestant theologians who said that God is the mysterium tremendum. God is the tremendous mystery. And I love to think of God as holding us in the palm of his hand. And there are many instances of that. But stuff happens. And there's nothing we can do. So, yes. Okay, let's yes.
No, I understand.
Okay, it's all, but you're thinking, I can hear you thinking.
Does the
Okay.
rabbi have a history of doing anything that was wrong that would have brought this on him?
Moses or Rabbi Akiva?
Rabbi Akiva.
He was doing what rabbis are supposed to do. There's always another story, okay? What happens is that somebody says to Rabbi Akiva, why, this is before, obviously, his martyrdom, they say, why are you risking your life to study Torah? Why don't you just get along and go along? He said, well, let me tell you a story. There's always a story and a story and a story. He says, a fox was standing on the bank of a river, or a lake, it's got to be a lake. A fox is standing on the bank of a lake, and the fish are swarming this way and that way. And the fox says, little fish, why are you staying in the water? Big fish will eat you, men come along and fish for you, women too. You come out here, come live on land with me, and I'll protect you. And the fish go, if our lives are so dangerous here in the water, which is our native element, alachas kama v'chama, how much more so would it be dangerous for us if we came out of the water and hung out with guys like you who will eat us? This is what Jews do. We're supposed to study Torah. And sometimes it's been risky. Thank God, it hasn't become a terrible thing yet. I think teaching Torah is what we do, yes. Oh, I'm sorry, Paul. Okay, well, here we go. Let's just do a quick progression through the poem. And this is a different tradition. How did we escape from Egypt? Dam, Svardea, Kenan, Aro. This is for pantomime Pesach. Okay? Yes, the tradition is that God punished Pharaoh. He sent 10 plagues. Why am I telling you this? And he rescued us. And we escaped from Egypt, biyad chazaka uvizroa netuya, with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Right?
Right.
That's one tradition. Here's another tradition. You know Rapunzel? Okay. All right. In the Jewish version of Rapunzel, Rapunzel is Israel, is the people Israel. And we are trapped in a high tower by an evil king. You can call him the Pharaoh. It's really okay. And God comes in the dead of night. God is the prince. And God climbs up the tower, snatches the people, takes them down, and carries them away on the wings of eagles. How do you like them apples?
I like that.
Isn't that nice?
Nice.
Yeah. It's what was that? What's that? Isn't there an opera, The Abduction from the Seraglio? Something Turkish. When the hero abducts his girlfriend from the harem, then she says, I'm coming out of a harem, and he says, I still love you. Okay. Anyway, so God found them in a desert land, in a desolate, howling wasteland. He encompassed them and bestowed understanding upon them. He protected them as the apple of his eye. So are we still in the catbird seat, so to speak, as far as God's protection?
Sometimes.
There's no place for cynicism here.
Always.
Yes.
Yes. Unfortunately, when God forbid something happens to somebody, maybe I'm not religious enough. Okay? Let's see, what else? Okay, so God guided them alone. He made them ride upon the high places of the earth. They would eat the produce of the field. Okay, Honey from the Rock. Remember them? They're a gospel group. This is where it comes from. He let them eat honey from the rock and oil from the chalamish, from the flint. Does oil come out of flint in your home?
I
No,
don't think
Does
so.
honey come out of a rock?
no.
Well, maybe you're not living in the right place.
I guess not.
It's metaphorical. It's metaphorical, honey. It's like, when the kid learns Hebrew, shemen udvash, oil and honey. Okay? And of course, what kind of oil is it? Is it vegetable oil?
Olive
oil. Gotta be olive oil. Okay, one of the.
First press.
First press.
Yes, virgin olive oil. And somebody will have to explain that to me.
What was Popeye's for organic?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I remember him. Was the guy who drew Popeye, was he Jewish? You can get back to me. Okay, I need to know. All right, now God gets angry, and as we said before, God has a pretty short fuse in the Torah, in the Hebrew Bible. God saw that they misbehaved. He became angry. He was provoked by his sons and daughters. He said, I will hide my face from them. This is something, there he is now. This is something, okay, apparently God is allowed to use the phone on Shabbat. I'm sorry. Okay, he said, I'll hide my face from them. I'll see what their end will be, for they are a changeable generation. They are not the children whom I reared. I remember before he lost his mind, Bill Cosby did a shtick where his father said, listen to me, he said to Bill. He said, you are my son. You will always be my son, and I will always love you. When you misbehave, you're your mama's boy. So it's the same thing here, only there's no mama to step in. All right? And after the other nations come and afflict the Israelites, God will arrive in the nick of time, like the Lone Ranger, and say, sing out praise, God will avenge the blood of his servants, inflict revenge upon his adversaries, and appease his land and his people. Well, God says to Moses, and with this I'll close, go up to Mount Nebo. Nebo is probably the only mountain they refer to in the Torah, which is not Mount Sinai. Mount Horeb is Mount Sinai. Har HaMoriah is Mount Sinai. That's where Abraham almost sacrificed Isaac. And God says, you'll be able to see the land, but you will not enter. And I think that's the cruelest cut of all. I really do. But it's the Torah. It's for grown-ups. Okay? Thank you very much. Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos. Now we'll light candles. Okay. All right. Yes.
What do you think?
Would you like to light candles? I'm David.
What do you think of this?
How do you do, Ms. Adler? All you have to do is strike a match and take it from there. Okay. Yes. I don't know if we have the new box of matches yet, but, oh, I see.
It's pretty heavy stuff.
Yes. It's a lovely match, but it doesn't always strike. Okay, the ladies will join Ms. Adler over here.
We have friends, Rita's known this woman for like 40 years, very
Oh,
close.
please.
So,
Okay, we wave our hands over the candles, bringing Shabbat, cover our eyes, and sing the blessing. Baruch Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu, lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen. Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, V'tzivanu, v'tzivanu, lahadlik ner. V'tzivanu, v'tzivanu, lahadlik ner. V'tzivanu, v'tzivanu, lahadlik ner. Shel Shabbat. Amen. Turn to the person next to you, wish them good Shabbat. Good Shabbat. Good
Good Shabbos again. Good Shabbos again.
you're still playing that?
Yeah, I play tomorrow morning. I play terrible Thursday.
Huh?
Play terrible Thursday. Shabbos Sunday. Yeah, very bad.
More.
Just a little more in. This is the lounge. I don't do well in the lounge.
No one else can be in.
Good, Charlie, Joe, thank you for your input.
Okay.
Wait.
Shalom
Aleichem, Shalom, Kadosh Baruch Hu.
Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon. Mimelech, Mimelech, Malachei Amlachim, Kadosh Baruch Hu. Kadosh Baruch Hu, Balkuni Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech, Mimelech, Malachei Amlachim, Kadosh Baruch Hu. Ay 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 Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech, Mimelech, Malachei Amlachim, Kadosh Baruch Hu. Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la ya la 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 ya la
All right, page 21 is the L'chata D, 21.
Lekadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat Kamela Lekadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat Kamela Shamor v'zachor v'dibur lechad Ishmi'anu elach yuchal Adonai echad Ushmo echad Shemu letiferet v'liteila Lechadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat Lechadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat Lekabela Likrat Shabbat lechu ve'erecha Ki mekol ha'bracha Berosh mikedem ve'sucha Sof ma'aseh v'Shabbat techila Lekadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat Lekabela Lekadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat Lekabela.
All right, please rise, page 22, the fourth stanza, face the doors to which the Sabbath queen will enter.
Oy v'shalom v'adem barai Gam simcha u'v'sorah Torah u'nei am segulah Oy kala Oy kala
we'll continue with the Baruch Hu, and that is on page 28, and we'll ask Bob and Carol Dickman to honor us by opening the yard.
Good job.
Bow towards the ark. Oh, we gotta open the curtain. It's become manual. The hole doesn't work. We're between poles. Seated. Yeah. All right, we have, let's see, we are going to go back.
ברוך אתה ה' אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר בדברו מלאים ורבים בחוכמה פותח שערים ובגבורה משניתים ומחליף את הזמנים ומסדר את הכוכבים במשמרותיהם ברקיע כרצונו מורר יום ולילה גולל אור מפני חושך וחושך מפני אור ומביא יום ומביא לילה ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה אדוני צבאות שמו אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני אמרי
All right, hold the place please on 29, and then we're going to go to the back for a lovely reading. Here's the lovely reading. Okay, it is for Sukkot, page 372. 372. Okay. Responsibly, for 40 years our ancestors wandered in the wilderness. They were your sanctuary, you were their protection. Together, 10
Sukkot, rude implement dwellings, the weakest of structures were the strongest of homes.
In them you shaped our people's soul, in them we have felt your nearness.
We build these houses new each year to find again your presence.
Life is frail as a sukkah, we are insubstantial as a harvest hut. Exposed to the ravages of nature, we are impermanent.
Faith in God is frail as a sukkah. It is frail to all life's evils, even as the sukkah is exposed to wind and rain.
But life is also strong as a sukkah. We are enduring as a harvest hut. Often beaten down, we rise again.
And faith in you is strong as a sukkah. Amid all life's flurries, it rises again and again, a fortress of hope and salvation.
On Sukkot, we thank you for all your blessings, home and hearth, food and clothing.
Above all, we thank you for the faith that sustains us. Spread us always your sukkah of inner peace.
And we'll return now, please, to page 29.
אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך תורה ומצוות חוקים ומשפטים אותנו לימדת על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו וקומנו נשיח בחוקך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לאור
let's cover our eyes to show God cannot be seen, only for the first line of the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Uncover the eyes. Baruch Shem Kivod, Mahuto V'Olam Va'ed. Reading the English. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. And these words which I command you this day you shall take to heart. Teach them diligently to your children, and recite them at home and away, night and day. Bind them as a sign upon your hand, and as a reminder above your eyes. Inscribe them upon the doorposts of your homes and upon your gates. Let's read silently the bottom paragraph on 30 and also on 31, the Hebrew. Continuing on 32, just before the Milchamocha, which is transliterated on the left.
ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו על היגל משה ובני ישראל לכהן ושינה בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם מי כמוך ברוך אדוני מי כמוך מלך הקודש נורא דינו עושה מלכותך רבנך בוגיים לבני משה סליאנו ואמרו Adonai Yom Le'olam Vaed ונאמר כי אדוני את יעקב וגאנו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
As we customarily do at the top left on 33, we're going to go around and if you know somebody in need of Refu'ahShelemah, a quick and speedy recovery, please mention their name, Jews, Gentiles, friends, relatives, anyone at all. We're thinking tonight of Laura Durant, Refu'ahShelemah, Howard Lackman, Refu'ahShelemah, and a couple of anonymous people as well, Refu'ahShelemah. Okay, yes, anybody? No? Yes? You do.
Francis Finn and Joey Chapa.
Refu'ahShelemah. Okay, yes. No? Okay, yeah. Yes, sir.
My mother-in-law, Sinai.
Refu'ahShelemah. Yes, read it.
Serafina Klein,
Refu'ahShelemah.
Cy Sperling.
Refu'ahShelemah.
Stephen Smith, Jonathan Ackey, Russell Shuck, Barton Reynolds.
Refu'ahShelemah.
Joel Cousins, Judy Cousins, Arlene Carl.
Refu'ahShelemah. Okay. Yes.
Pearl Katz, Marsha Goodhart,
Refu'ahShelemah.
and Lola.
Refu'ahShelemah. Yes.
Bruce Martin,
Refu'ahShelemah.
Heidi Dennis,
Refu'ahShelemah.
and Carl Williams.
Refu'ahShelemah. Also James Basmajian, Refu'ahShelemah. All right, let's read together the top left-hand English paragraph. Help us, Adonai, to lie down in peace,
and awaken us again our sorrow to life.
Spread over us your shelter of peace. Guide us with your good counsel. Save us because of your mercy. Shield us from enemies and pestilence, from starvation, sword, and sorrow. Remove the evil forces that surround us. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings, O God, who watches over us and delivers us, our gracious and merciful ruler. Guard our coming and our going. Grant us life and peace now and always. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Praise to you, Adonai, who spreads the shelter of peace over us, over all his people, over Jerusalem and the entire world. Also, I wanted to mention, thank God they're okay, there was a platoon of Green Berets caught between the Kurds and the Turks, and they were able to escape without any harm. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, Baruch atah Adonai, Aporei sukat shalom aleinu, v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim, v'al kol ha'olam kulo. Amen. 34, we have the Rishamru.
V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לתורת הברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לתורת הברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לתורת הברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לתורת הברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לתורת הברית עולם.
Please rise, have Kaddish, bottom of 34.
יתגדל ויתקדש שם רבה, ועלמא דיברה חילותי וימליך מלכותי, וחיי כל ביום ביכון, וחיי לכל בית ישראל. ועלה ובזמן קריב ויגמרו אמן. יש מרבה מבורך לעולם יומיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל שמי קודשם להביא כל מלכתה ושירתה ושפחתה לחמתה תמירה ורחמה
On 35B, we have the standing silent prayer, that is the Amidah. So please read it silently, as I said. 35B, and it concludes on page 38.
Shalom Raham, Al Yisrael Alecha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Raham, Al Yisrael Alecha, Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon, lechol Shalom. Ki ata hu melech adon, lechol Shalom. Shalom Raham, Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Raham, Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
48.
Linia la vista Shemarabah. Yalmadi Mirakru Devi Amrik Malku Devi Kai Chorim Amrik Chorim Kai Chorim Israel. Bagar Aviz Magani Veimru. Yegesh Meira Menona. Olam Yom Maya. Yidvarak Veishtabak Veitpar Vidrova Midrase. Beitadar Vitale Vitala Vishme Kudesha. Leila Minikol Mirikata Vishirata. Tushmakata Minikata Minatana Veimru. תתקבל אצל אותו מכל ישראל, כדמות משמיה וגימברו. אמן. וישמע משמיה, וחיים עלינו על כל ישראל וגימברו. אמן. עושה שלום במרומה, ויעשה שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל יושבי תבל, וגימברו. אמן.
On page 49 is the Shabbat Kiddush, and we'll wait for the Kiddush ladies to do their thing. Kiddush ladies.
The Kiddush food.
Okay, it's not ever Kiddush, it's ever Kiddush. I understand that in certain temples which are very traditional, they have an ongoing problem that after the Torah goes back into the Ark, a little group gathers in the lobby to, again, it's the Chaver Kedusha, they make Kiddush and they drink schnapps. It's a great scandal.
I think the cups get, I think the cups get away. Being quick.
Consider them having meat sandwiches in the sanctuary on St. Crispin's Day. That was in North Carolina. Yeah.
I know that in the sanctuary to drink a schnapps while the Torah is dancing.
Yeah, they do
But
that.
we do the schnapps with gefilte fish.
Oh, they have gefilte fish in the sanctuary?
I know that, the sanctuary is the back.
On the back, and they social hall. They had a wagon, not here, in North Carolina. They brought in a wagon with rye bread and deli sandwiches for Simchas Torah Day.
They drinking out of baby soup.
Baruch atah Adonai, Melech haolam, borei v'ni'anav. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher קידשנו במצוותיו ורצבנו בשבת קודשו, לאהבה ורצון הנחילנו, זיכרון למעשה בראשית, גילויה תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר יציאת ממצרים, קיבלנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת, מכל העמים, בשבת קודשך, למה וברצון, יקרתנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש
Page 51 is the Aleinu. Okay, opening the ark, let's see. Paul and Rita, could you please?
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גאולה יוצר ראשית, שלא עשינו כבודי הרצון, ולא שמענו בשפחות אדמה, שלא שם אלוקינו כהן, וגורלנו ככל עמונם, אנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים, ונמלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שאונות לשמיים ויוצר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו ועובד מרומים, הוא אלוהינו עינות, עבד מלכנו עבד זולתו, כך כתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום השמות לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ נטרח עיניו, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד, ושמו
All right, if you're not saying Mourner's Kaddish, you may be seated. I also wanted to mention, as we say Lahavdil, that we have one more person in need of Refu'ahShelemah.
Esther Cohen.
Esther Cohen, and for her we say, this is the shortest prayer for healing, really. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, rofei kol basar umafli la'asot. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who heals all flesh and works wonders. We'll say Amen.
Amen.
Dedicating that as well to the folks in need of healing from before. And the mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, Amen. Yalmad yivrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayei chon v'mei chon v'chayei t'chol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'bizman kariv v'yimru Amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach li'olam u'me'el mayar. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipo'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei t'kudesha b'richu. V'elam min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechamata. Ta'miran v'yalma v'yimru Amen. Yehei shlama rama min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav. Uyaseh shalom. Aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yal kol yoshvei tevel v'yimru Amen. Please be seated before Cantor leads us in the Adonai Ram. A few announcements by Ms. Rita Fleming Klein. I want to know.
Good Shabbos, everyone. Weren't the high holidays spectacular?
Yes.
I'm just overwhelmed by how beautiful they were. Hello, Laura. Hello, Esther. Hello, Roseanne and Howard and everyone at home. If you couldn't be here with us for the high holidays, please know you were within our thoughts, our prayers, and our hearts all the time. I want to welcome Ben and Stacy. And Stacy, I know you're here for a Yorkshire, but I hope you'll come unhappy times too, because we're here for you. This week we had an amazing event in the raising of our sukkah for Sukkot, because Sukkot is almost here. And the mitzvah of raising the sukkah was done by 3 women who I call the Sukkettes. Grace Weinstein, our new member Larissa Sivens, and Rosalie Sloot, and by Cantor Javier, who came equipped to raise the sukkah in shorts and sneakers, and Gary Sivens, our new member, Evan Bergman, who came, and the sukkah is absolutely beautiful.
Yes, until before the rain.
It'll still be beautiful. It'll be a little wet, but it'll be beautiful. It'll be beautiful. Sukkot begins on Sunday evening, so please come at about 6:30. We're just going to have a nash in the sukkah, but we'll have the first evening together. On Monday at the minyan, which will be between 8:45 and 9 o'clock, we're going to, after our Sukkot service, we're going to have breakfast in the sukkah. So come, be with us, make us a beautiful minyan for the holiday. And on Friday, for our Shabbat, before our Shabbat services, we're having pizza in the hut. So we'll have pizza in the sukkah. So we're going to be celebrating Sukkot all week, and we hope that you'll all be with us. And then comes Simchas Torah on Monday the 21st. We're going to have our morning minyan, a celebration of Simchas Torah. And that evening, Monday evening, at 6:30, I believe. 6 or 6:30. I think it's 6:30. I'll double check for you during the week. We're going to have our Torah dancing celebration for Simchas Torah with musicians and with a bride and groom for Simchas Torah. So come, we had the most beautiful celebration last year, and we want you with us this year. And we're going to have
On the 28th?
21st. 21st.
No,
21st.
I am on the 21st.
Yeah.
I said I was going to be on the 28th.
Okay, but wait, you'll talk after. We're going to have an Israeli dinner. And what I'd love you to do is, since it's going to be something we're all going to contribute to, because we don't want to charge anything for any of our events in this holiday week, there'll be a list in the office about what you can bring, of course kosher for our kitchen, nothing very fancy, so that we can all put together an Israeli dinner for Simchas Torah. After our service tomorrow, Rabbi's class will be on.
Yeah, we're going to do Shlomo Ibn Gaviro. I kind of thought we should get back to the Jewish people as opposed to doing, fundamentalism and nihilism and all that. Shlomo Ibn Gaviro, we're talking about not 10th century, 11th century, Spanish, great theologian and philosopher as well, and a poet. We sing his poem. At dawn I seek you, refuge, rocks of wine. That's him. Yeah.
Now, don't miss Rabbi's classes. Don't miss them. Tomorrow after services, and on Wednesday at 4:30 for an adult Hebrew class, at 7 o'clock for a very rousing current events class. I promise that you'll have a very stimulating time. People will come home from the current events class, one of them being my wonderful husband, come home laughing. And in these difficult times, I think that's quite an accomplishment. So come and be with us, and a good Shabbos to all of you.
Good Shabbos.
Thank you, Rita.
Thank you. We are laughing today. I don't know what's coming. Just a correction. On Monday the 21st in the morning, it's not yet Simchat Torah. We call that day the Shmini Atzeret. Shmini Atzeret
is the Shmini Atzeret, and it's the day that we say the Iskor again, and it's the day that they close the book. I mean, you have first you write your name in the book, then in Yom Kippur they seal the book, and then they close, and then Federal Express or UPS. And until next year we don't know anything about that. But that is the last day of this kind of season of. So if you didn't make the Teshuvah, you still have a chance. Yes, you still have a chance. So that is going to happen the 21st in the morning, and then it's Simchat Torah in the night.
And you'll have a cookie in the sukkah.
Yeah. So, I don't know, today the rabbi brought to me a list of suggestions for tunes to sing on, and because I am a good pupil.
But it's pasnish. You don't want to use them. It's okay.
You don't use that word.
Student.
Yeah, pupils are because I am British. This is why
Okay,
I
British.
am British.
It's a British accent?
My hand is a pupil. So I am a good pupil. So I am going to sing the Adon Olam with the tune of David Melech Israel. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'Terem Kol Yetzir Nivra Alein Nasar L'Chesa Kol Azal Melech Shemonik V'Nachalek Yivot HaKol V'Avado Im Noknot Ve'hu Haya Ve'hu Ove Ve'hu Yeh V'Tzipara Ve'hu Echad Ve'Sheli Ve'Yamshil Lo Le'Akbida Ve'Yigol Shil Ve'Nitagrid Ve'Tova'oz Ve'Amisra Ve'hu Eli Ve'Chai Wali Ve'Sur Chevri Ve'Yetzara Ve'hu Posible yo me cambia a toda tu mujer y ya me aira me imbrujige y a ti a la y me oirá David Melech Israel Chai Chai Vekaya Melech Israel Chai Chai Vekaya Melech Israel Chai Chai Vekaya.
Please rise. I want to thank the cantor for his very enthusiastic Adon Olam, which seems to be even quicker than. And God saying, "Say what?" All right.
Yevarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha.
May the Lord bless you and keep you.
Yair Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka.
The Lord make His face shine upon you and be gracious unto you.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.
And the Lord turn His face unto you and grant you peace. We'll say Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much. I should
You are very welcome.